Hey everyone, Rua here. I've made 2 videos on ideas for job adjustments and in the process touched on what I'm about to go into here, how I think Black Mage could be fixed. First, a little context. I started playing Black Mage around the time Eshka and Reisenjima were released, so that was quite some time ago. I pivoted between Black Mage and Geomancer as my link shell's needs required. Shortly after Monster Evasion was adjusted and melee strategies became viable once again, like many, my Black Mage was mothballed. I only recently pulled it out of retirement with the addition of Odyssey Joel, and found that not much has changed since the job's heyday back in 2015. That was almost 6 years ago, goodness me. Anyway, I digress. The point is, I'm well aware of how the job functions, and with recent experience and comparisons I can draw from playing other mage jobs, I think I've got a good idea how to finally fix one of the classic Final Fantasy series jobs, arguably the signature job. Let's start with outlining what a present-day Black Mage is all about and comparing it with its fellows. Black Mages, put simply, are the masters of elemental magic. With a strong occult acumen set and some skill, a Black Mage is capable of self-skill chaining and bursting off their own skill chains for optimal damage. Black Mages are also proficient in dark magic, possessing all 3 tiers of the Aspir line, and having access to the impact spell it's uniquely suited to optimize with Elemental Seal. The job has among its spells elemental magic debuffs. These are powerful and are absolutely noticeable thanks to Reforged Relic Armor and Merit category adjustments. Finally, Black Mage is surprisingly and extremely sturdy, with its Mana Wall ability allowing it to bypass the 50% damage reduction cap on equipment, taking hits no mage frankly should be able to. Black Mages are not the only ones with access to elemental magic though. Geomancers are also adept in the school, possessing some unique AoE elemental magic in their Ra line, but not to the same degree as a Black Mage. Of course though, elemental magic is second hat to a Geomancer, with Geomancy being their true forte. Nevertheless, Geomancers are versatile in their role, able to support their groups and their own magic damage with acumen, melees, among other effects, pushing damage output to levels strikingly close to a Black Mage. Geomancers face a steep mountain to climb to get to this aspect of their job, but it is undeniably effective. Or they can opt to support their group's melee DPS or provide great defense if needs must. It's very rare not to see a Geomancer alongside a Black Mage when magic bursting is the order of the day. Red Mages might have lower natural ability with elemental magic, only having a C+ skill rating in the school, but their ability to cripple their targets with their powerful enfeebling magic levels the playing field, and their great gear selection means they too can put out respectable damage. Red Mages will not match a Black Mage in raw damage output, but like Geomancer, they have other benefits they bring to groups. Enfeebling, enhancing, and healing magic, and even some stellar end spell and magic weapon skill damage, which one can reasonably argue more than closes the gulf between the 2 jobs in terms of magic damage output. Scholars command both white and black magic schools, able to change their purpose in response to changing circumstances in a battle. They too have their own unique elemental magic spells, with Helixes and Kalstra, extremely powerful DOT spells. Scholars are also capable of giving themselves and their fellows stronger elemental affinity bonuses with their storm spells, amping up the damage of not just elemental magic, but any magic or hybrid weapon skill aligned with the active storm. Fundamentally, Scholars are not meant for large spike damage from magic bursting. The damage over time nature of Helixes and their ability to safely form skill chains for others from a distance underlines this aspect of intentional design. Like Geomancer before them, it's very common to see a Scholar alongside a Black Mage in magic burst setups for the exact reasons I just brought up. Even Puppet Masters are capable of rather spectacular elemental magic damage if they truly master controlling their Spirit Reaver automaton. Something that might appear a pale imitation at first glance, but when you're seeing it being used by a master, it's honestly frightening how much damage it can punch out. Puppet Masters can amp up the magic damage of their automaton to dizzying heights, and can even give it a straight up damage dealt bonus with proper allocation and use of attachments. Even without other jobs supporting it, a Spirit Reaver automaton can lay waste to monsters as the Puppet Master generates skill chains for it. When it is being supported, then it's really something to behold. Finally, let's address the elephant in the room. In most content where magic damage is needed, a good Corsair or Ranger will utterly outclass any spellcaster. If the monster does not have specific resistances against light or darkness damage, then all bets are off. Power creepers turn Leaden Salute and True Flight into absolute wrecking balls of weapon skills. Let's summarize the points, the problems Black Mage has. The biggest issue is that elemental magic lags behind physical damage so much that in content where both are viable avenues, physical damage will always win out. Physical damage is a constant stream of DPS with stronger overall spike damage, while magic damage takes time to cast, faces a universal spellcasting delay between spells, and elemental magic is just no match for the majority of weapon skills. Compounding this is the fact that Black Mages, more so than any other spellcaster, face a steep drop in damage output during magic bursts thanks to the nuke wall mechanic. Magic bursting is meant to be a Black Mage's time to shine, but it's penalised for attempting to do so. Runefencer's Rake and Gambit slightly mitigate this problem, but neither can be maintained without ability resets. Multi-step skill chaining also alleviates the problem, but how often do you really see that when all most DPS need is two of their best weapon skills chained together to wipe a monster out? Black Mage is also beaten handsomely by Ranger and Corsair when it comes to outright magic damage. There's simply no getting around that fact. The job regains ground if magic bursting is specifically needed, but if ranged DPS are capable of easily outdoing the job centered on magic damage, then you know something is amiss. All the other jobs I brought up earlier have things to offer other than just elemental magic, and most of them are desirable in group content. Black Mage does elemental magic. That's it. The job's focus is parochial, and since it's not even the best at what it does, it cannot pivot to another role, further underlining this problem. It's relatively easy to accommodate and optimize physical damage DPS. Most even have the means of doing part of that themselves, with various defense down weapon skills or abilities which directly increase damage output. In contrast, Black Mage has precious little to support its own damage output in this way, so it demands that groups configure their entire support structure to them. It's a bit selfish. Finally, the core mechanics of the job are fundamentally outdated, and much of it still operates off systems from the level 75 era and the Abyssea Voidwatch era. Ancient Magic's magic evasion down has not been adjusted ever since the spells were released. Jar spells need several Black Mages casting the same spell 5 times to max out the elemental affinity bonus before it wears off. Meteor is perhaps the worst offender, as it needs 6 Black Mages in a single group casting at the same time to get the best damage. This worked in Alliance content like Ground Kings, Abyssea, Voidwatch, Delve, and Eshka before physical damage was made viable again, but current content does not allow for this now. Having said all this, it's clear that the adjustments Black Mage needs have to be major and impactful. Black Mage should be the undisputed master of elemental magic. Nerfing Leaden Salute or True Flight will not solve any problem Black Mage has. These adjustments may therefore sound extreme, but please hear my proposals out. The first adjustment should be a blanket buff to elemental magic, specifically to the base damage of all spells through a new job trait. Black Mage should not be the only one to get this trait. Other casters ought to get lower tiers of it proportional to their need for it. Consider it the analogue of the Smite job trait. Magic damage has an impact on all elemental magic, lower tiers more so, but for Black Mages looking to get more power from such lower tier spells between burst windows, it'd be noticeable. A Puppet Master can already do this with the Arcano Clutch attachments, so it can be done. However, Black Mage should get an exclusive job trait which lets it get some actual use out of the magic critical hit mechanic. You see, unlike physical critical hits, which all jobs have a chance of landing even without equipment increasing the rate, spells cannot critical hit without equipment which has magic critical hit rate on it. That's frankly absurd and needs addressing. Currently, magic critical hits add magic attack bonus to the spell that crits, up to a maximum of 40 with equipment to increase the damage. This obviously doesn't work for several reasons. No optimal equipment set for free nuking or magic bursting has any magical critical hit rate or damage on it, so you're never going to even have a chance of a critical. Secondly, there's no way to tell if a magical critical is even hit, as there's no animation or message in the battle log. Thirdly, gearing for magical critical hit rate and damage is counterintuitive, since you'd be giving up equipment with far better stats. The solution is this job trait, which gives a baseline chance of critting a spell and increasing the magic attack bonus when doing so. Also, the cap for magical critical hit damage ought to be drastically increased to make it worth something. Oh, and a simple message indicating a magic crit should be added. Other adjustments would be to cut the elemental seal reuse timer down to 3 minutes, just like a paladin's divine emblem recently was. This would help maintain elemental debuffs on stubborn targets in drawn out battles. Meteor needing 6 Black Mages to get maximum damage potential might have been a novel and neat concept back in the Voidwatch days, but it's just not aged well. Meteor should get its maximum power when cast by a single Black Mage. Another mechanic from the Abyssea Voidwatch era needs to be consigned to the bin. The cumulative magic damage bonus jar spells give should not need 5 casts to maximize the elemental affinity debuff they inflict. If you're unfamiliar with Black Mage, let me explain this, as the mechanic is scarcely known. Jar spells and Comet inflict a hidden debuff on their target which cannot be resisted. The debuff increases the damage the monster takes on that element by 5%. This can be increased by another 5% with another cast of the same spell until it maxes out at 25%. It also applies to all other forms of elemental damage, so a Corsair's Leaden Salute would get another 25% damage bonus if that monster has been hit with Comet enough times. If this sounds familiar for some reason, it's because it's the same thing a Runed Fencer's Effusion Gambit does. Black Mage actually had the same mechanic earlier. Here's the problem though, the debuff only has a 1 minute duration, 1 minute 40 seconds with the Empryon legs, and this cannot be reset. When this timer expires, the effect has to be built all the way back to 25%. Casting the same jar spell 5 times as you struggle to max the effect before it wears off is stupid. 2 casts should cap the effect. Gambit would still be stronger, but this would give groups a great fallback option for when Gambit is down. The final set of spells that need adjustment are Ancient Magic. These spells also apply a hidden debuff to their targets. They reduce magic evasion against the opposing element of the spell by 30. This is another mechanic which has not aged well since the level 75 cap. I never understood why Ancient Magic and Elemental Ninjutsu as well reduce magic evasion against their opposing element. That makes absolutely no sense. Think about it. If something absorbs thunder but requires you to cast Burst 2 to lower its resistance to earth, the element you actually want, that's just dumb. Ancient Magic should affect subsequent casts of the same element, but how? I propose that Ancient Magic should emulate a Fusion Rake, and directly hit elemental resistance corresponding with the element of the spell. Half the power of Rake, but like before, it'd be something to use when Rake is down, which given Rake's short duration is often. Finally, Black Mage's mythic weapon skill, Vardolhunir, should hit monster magic defense harder than it does. As it stands, Shatter Soul has the same potency and is available to a lot more jobs, so a Black Mage's own version should be a lot stronger. Keep the damage as it is, just increase the potency of the additional effect. Even a Beastmaster outclasses the potency of both weapon skills with the AccuX and Tolfair. I'd say triple it from -10 to -30 magic defense. That way it matches Geo melees without an Idris and job abilities, but stacks with melees to really push the damage further. That addresses under the hood adjustments. Black Mage only needs one ability overhauling, Cascade. In its current form, Cascade isn't very useful because it consumes all TP in exchange for some increased magic damage. Not the best use of TP when Mercure, Spirit Taker for MP Restorer, and Vardolhunir push your damage further than what Cascade would give you better returns. In the same manner that Saboteur was overhauled for Red Mage, I would massively overhaul Cascade for Black Mage. Cascade's new version would have a 1 and 30 second duration, much like how Saboteur was extended from only affecting one spell to multiple spells. Cascade would increase magical critical hit rate and damage dealt by elemental magic proportional to the MP consumed while Cascade is active. at a rate of 1% per 100 MP, capping at a 30% bonus for both. Now this sounds especially extreme, but consider this. Cascade would demand a Black Mage keep a very close eye on their MP pool, and especially on their enmity. Enmity Douse would get a Black Mage out of trouble once, but unless it was reset by a Corsair, it has a 10-minute reuse timer. Subtle Sorcery would also see some renewed application from this change. If all else fails, then it would cut down enmity generation, not entirely, as it only affects cumulative enmity. If a Black Mage is blazing through their MP, they run the risk of losing Mana Wall's protection if they take a solid hit in retaliation. 3000 MP to max out the effect of Cascade is actually a tall order, and would require a lot of skill so DPS does not drive off a cliff when it falls. This would demand pausing a spellcasting rampage for MP management like using Mercure or the Aspir spells, or to allow your tank to regain some enmity. This sounds like the most drastic change I've proposed so far, but I really believe Black Mage should hold the status the Final Fantasy series historically has it occupying, able to deal extreme magic damage and blast monsters away, all the while being conscious of their own fragile nature which lies beneath defences that can be pulled out from under them if they badly mismanage their resources. I've not mentioned removing the nuke wall in all of these changes, and that's because I wouldn't. The nuke wall was implemented for a good reason, and it should stay. There just needs to be more ways of mitigating its impact for a single Black Mage, or a Black Mage working with other jobs like Geomancer or Red Mage. These proposed changes have been thought up with the idea of allowing Black Mage and other spellcasters to have more viability in a wider array of content. It would just be nice to have a viable alternative again. In conclusion, Black Mage needs a major overhaul, under the hood and ability adjustments alike to bring it where it ought to be, the undisputed master of elemental magic. That is how the job has been throughout the series, and I hope Square Enix pays it particular attention when the job adjustments arrive this year. Anyhow, this was the most thorough brainstorming I've done so far. What are your thoughts on it, and what would you do to fix the job? I'll read up your replies in the coming days and see what conversations we can get going. I'll see you all next time.